are we starting? Should we? We're already
I
going.
well, we are kind of already going. But yeah, I was thinking we do like a whole like intro. Hey, here, this is Art Bubble, and we're here with Kazu Kibuishi. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you want to go with that?
I think I'll try going with a proper intro somehow, even though I might just go the other way and go total Stephen Colbert and say like, oh no, we're not cutting any of this.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I like non sequitur stuff as well.
Kazu Kibuishi, creator of Amulet and my subject for an interview tonight. It's awesome to see you. And I've really been looking forward to this for a long time, actually. And I'm glad we got the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, no, this is great. You know, we're all sitting in our rooms now. So what else can we do besides work on the books? Of course, I'm doing that too. Yeah, but, happy to be here. Happy to be all the way across the world here in where you are.
Well, I'm in Copenhagen, but Art Bubble is usually located in the city of Aarhus, which is about 3 hours drive from here.
Oh, okay, nice. That's really neat.
It's a national festival. What can I say?
Yeah, I hope someday I'll get to visit that part of the world. I haven't been there yet, and I've traveled quite a bit. I just stopped traveling before, right after the kids arrived.
Right.
I tried to do less international travel so I could stay nearby as often as I can.
Well, we'd be happy to have you one day, so you just let us know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll let you know.
Because that brings us to the subject of our chat tonight, and that is the fact that Amulet, after several years of hiatus actually in Denmark, is now being published again by Danish publisher Alvilda.
Oh, okay.
And they bought the old license from the old publisher, and they are now doing 3 books a year until they're done. So the question is, when will Amulet finish up?
It finishes up on book 9, which is what I'm in the middle of right now. Technically speaking, as far as pages go, I'm halfway through the book, but in terms of how much work has been done, I'm on the final stretch. Because most of the work is done prior to drawing the pages. It's all the research, the writing, the figuring out who the new characters are, if there are new characters, figuring out the experience that I want to create for the reader. A lot of that has, for the most part, been worked out. So it's why I'm able to go on these interviews and talk now, because I'm just kind of in a work phase right now. So I'm just producing material. And it's essentially my kind of like our victory lap. It's a long journey. I mean, it's been a long time working on this series, so it's just our final few laps here.
It's the home stretch.
It is.
Now, as you just said, it's 9 books when you finish up. How long has it taken you to do all this?
Technically, I started in 1997. If you really wanted to go like to the very, very beginning, in 1997 is when I first gave it a shot, and I was in college, and I'd never done a full comic book, let alone a graphic novel, but I just tried to start working on one because I was so inspired by Hayao Miyazaki's Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind. I read that, and I also read Bone by Jeff Smith, and I thought, wow, this is like reading Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia in like a graphic novel format or comic book format. I didn't know what a graphic novel was at the time, and I just thought, wow, this is really fantastic. I'd love to be able to do this because I can draw and I love to write. I mean, I was more of a writer than I was an artist at the time, so I just thought, well, this is great. I don't have to leave drawing behind. I could do both. And so I gave it a shot in college, and it was so hard that I just quit immediately. I just put it aside. I said, wow, this is insane. Like this would be an insane amount of work. I didn't realize how difficult this would be. I also wasn't old enough to write the kind of stories that I would want to read, and so I had to wait for years. And then I came back to it in 2005. That's when Scholastic asked me if I had anything in mind to do. I had already done a book called Daisy Cutter. I did a couple of volumes, 3 volumes of the Flight Anthology. It was a collection of short stories by friends of mine and by myself as well. Um, and I had Amulet waiting in the wings. So I said, yeah, I've got this project that I started in college. I'd like to try to finish it. And I pitched them a few pages, and that's when I got signed on to do it. I didn't know it was going to be this long. I really honestly thought it was going to be a practice run because I'd never done a graphic novel prior to, well, Daisy Cutters technically looks like a graphic novel, but it was a 4-issue miniseries of comics that were
Mm.
released every 2 months, and that keeps you on a schedule, and it's a very different mentality when you're doing that kind of work than if you were to do a book all at once. I'd never done a book all at once until Amulet 1, and so Amulet is still my first venture into graphic novels in general, like just the format. And yeah, so I thought it was going to be one book. They asked for two, so I said, okay, I could split that one book into two. And then as I got to the end of the second, I just thought, there's no way this is over. This is a much longer story than I thought I anticipated. We're gonna have to go to 5 books, and then towards the end of 5, I said, I need a couple more, so we got to get to 7. And then I was getting towards 7, I thought, oh man, there's no way we're gonna be able to finish this. So, but I'm gonna put a cap on it. It's gonna be 9. I said it's gonna be 9 because I want it to always be short enough that it's not so intimidating for a reader to read 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. Because I think if it was 50 volumes long, like a lot of manga series,
Mm.
it's so that it's really hard for a reader in years later to look at it and revisit it. It doesn't become literature anymore. It's just a moment in time. So I wanted to make sure to cap it off at 9 to match Bone, and I wanted Amulet to stay on the shelf with Bone.
Does that mean that once the books are done, that you're gonna do like a whole completed Amulet book, just like Jeff Smith did with Bone?
No, no, no. I don't. I think that might be impossible because it's actually a lot longer than Bone, and Bone barely. I think it's like, I mean, I couldn't believe he got that book together. It's pretty hard to hold that 1 volume edition.
I know. I
uh,
got mine right over there.
okay, yeah, I've got a couple. I've got several in the house. But yeah, I don't know. I that would be kind of cool if someone can figure out how to bind it, because like these are full color pages, so it's different, because at the
Mm.
black and white you can do it in a way that you could do it on the thin paper, but I don't
Mm.
know if you could do that with color. You know what I'm talking about? Because if you read Bone, the 1 volume edition, the paper is thin, like in a
It's
Bible.
yeah, it's really thin.
And I don't know if you can do that with color. If you can, then I suppose it's possible. But man, I don't know. I think I'd rather just people read it as a like just. I have the box set in mind. I have the design for the final box set, and I want them to get that. I think that's the way to read it because I also want the book to be something you can carry with you wherever you go. I don't want you to have to take a wagon and carry it around with you like it's just like
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 a
it's
small brick.
a load of laundry or something.
Yeah. Well, I've always enjoyed like reading when I'm taking public transport and stuff like that. And I've seen other people reading comics as well when I'm taking the metro here in Denmark, and I really enjoy seeing that possibility. And definitely, yeah, having a smaller volume than the collected Bone is the easier way to go. That's true.
Yeah, I want each reading experience to fit in a backpack. That's the way I've always I thought about it. I just thought, okay, what goes in a backpack? It's going to be like a math book or English workbook. a binder, bag of pencils, maybe a lunch, and so there's just enough room for some like kind of not so big book.
Mm.
And I think that's what I wanted to. In my mind, I thought that's where the adventure has to fit. It has to fit inside the backpack. So I've been trying to make sure that the stories aren't too long. I'm trying to pack as much as I can into a small amount of space. I think comics have like almost infinite room to fit information into it, and I think a lot of times people don't take advantage of that. And so I'm trying really hard with Amulet 9 to do that. It's going to be it's way more dense than any of the other books I've done. And it's just me like trying to push that one lever of information compression to as much as I can in the short amount of time I have, to see if I can put like a epic novel into the space of a essentially a magazine, you know.
Mm. I think you've done a pretty good job so far. Let me say that. That's just for me. I remember reading the books. It's been a while. I'll admit that, and I haven't finished it because at the time I was reading the original Danish versions,
Mm.
and then while I could have read the English ones, when I found out that it was coming back in Danish, I really wanted them for my kids, and that's the way I'm going on this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
I think I want parents to share the adventure with the kids. It's one of the reasons why the mom goes on the adventure with the kids. People were like, why does the mom go on the adventure? I go, well, because they are on the adventure. The parents and the kids are on an adventure together. You guys are on that's what it's always been like in my house. Whether it's my immediate family or with or just with my mom, like my mom and my brother and we were like a unit, growing up together, because she was so young when she had us. She was in her early 20s, which it's hard to imagine myself having kids at that age, I guess. Because I don't know how it is, where you are. But in America, people are having kids pretty late these days. It's like
Mm,
30s,
yeah.
for my wife and I, it was like early 30s, just as we were turning 30.
Mm,
And and then even then it felt kind of late, just in terms of health and things like that, and so with my mom having us, and she was only 20, like she was like early 20s when she had me. So it was like we were almost in the same generation. Almost I mean, it's not totally, but she kind of related to us more than I think a lot of other moms did. And so we grew up with her, and in that sense, as my brother and I got older, we did a lot to take care of her and my dad.
mm. So do you feel that this connection that you had with your mom has influenced the book in a lot of ways, or just in some ways?
In lots of ways, yeah. It's at the heart of the book, actually. I think that's like literally the heart of this book. I mean, if you just go right to the very beginning of the first book, it really is like, I think it can all be encapsulated in the one scene where Emily is reaching out to her mom's hand as she's being carried away by the arachnopod and trying to escape it, and she can't hold on, just like she couldn't hold on to her dad's hand when he dies, you know. And I think that's the emotional core of the entire book, which is that I feel that there's every generation seems to deal with a separation from the previous generation, but maybe I've been noticing it more around me than most people, and I wanted to create a story that helped bridge that back and patch it back together, so that parents and kids and grandparents and everybody can kind of get along and work together, as opposed to fight each other. Because I'm in America and they're always fighting. Everybody here is fighting all the time. It's always like mom and dad are the villain, or grandma and grandpa are the villain, or Uncle Bob and whatever is the villain, and in my family, it's never been like that. Everyone's been different in my family, but we all looked at each other as family, and it's like, even if you disagreed with your family members, they're still your family. You treat them with respect. You work with them, and that's, I don't know, maybe that's an Asian American upbringing. I don't know. I know some Asian American kids who aren't like that. So, um, I think it's maybe just an American thing. It's an American, like, it's this kind of rascally independence thing. I don't know. But I was wanting to write a story that I didn't see on the shelves, which is to see those generational rifts being healed, as opposed to being further severed, because so much of our entertainment was about how moms and dads didn't understand the kids, and how the kids didn't understand the parents, and it was just further and further apart. They were being drawn further and further apart, and I was really disappointed in seeing that. So I tried to buck the trend.
Well, I look forward to finding out with my kids if the book has that impact on them. That's for sure.
Well, hopefully you guys enjoy it together, and I think that by itself is all I can really hope for.
Mm.
You guys, if you guys can both read it, and you not feeling like it's a chore, and for the kids not feeling like they're being lectured. I think the combination of those two things, if you can strike that balance, I think you have something that that can be a shared experience.
I believe so as well. Now, before the interview, I asked a few of your Danish fans if they would be so kind as to write some questions as well. And you've actually already answered a bunch of them unknowingly, um, including like what inspired Amulet. You mentioned Jeff Smith. You mentioned Miyazaki, and you mentioned probably the manga Nausicaa rather than the anime, right?
That is right. Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Although anime has been anything Miyazaki has been a touchstone for me. So any of his work has been my artistic guide. There's a lot of it, like all, and most of it's animated. So most of my inspirations of his are the animated kind. But it was reading particularly the Nausicaa graphic novel where I felt like there was something there I'd never seen before, and I wanted to replicate that.
Yeah, I think he has that effect on a lot of people all over the place. We were just watching a couple of days ago. We were just watching Lupin the Third on Netflix. That was so much fun coming back to that film. I hadn't seen it in years, and my kids loved it.
Yeah, his first directorial effort, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So aside from Jeff and from Miyazaki, who has inspired you, or which artists have inspired you and guided your hand, so to speak?
Yeah. I would also put Mobius up there, and Tove Jansson up there. Um, like reading, just looking through the Arzak books, and also through Moomin. I feel like I don't know, if you just look at those works and then look at mine and go, oh yeah, he's it's very clear. There's a very clear line. Charles Schultz, Peanuts. I think Peanuts is the greatest comic strip ever made. Right up there with Crazy Cat. I think George Harriman's Crazy Cat is right up there as well for me. I Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of small things, like that a lot of people might not know about. Mort Drucker from Mad Magazine, Bill Pete, the children's book illustrator and Disney director. His style was very appealing to me. I think my people and the kind of my storytelling feel has a very Bill Pete feel to it. Um, Richard Scarry, Busy Town books and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Those. There's quite a bit. I'm always looking for things to inspire me. I like contemporary work too. I think a lot of people who are doing really great things. Um, I like all of it. There's really not that much I dislike. I don't like things that have if there's something I don't like, it's usually just if it's mean spirited. You know, if something is like trying to attack somebody else, I'm not into that.
Right.
Uh, Outside of that, like if you're just doing your thing, I'm open to pretty much any kind of work, and taking a look at it.
So if you were to point out to or point to a few creators currently working, not inspiring you maybe, but whose work you would go out of your way to read, who would that be right now?
Hmm. Naoki Urasawa would be one. Anything that Urasawa does, I think, is fantastic. You know, so he did 20th Century Boys, Pluto, Monster, especially. I thought that was really good. I think he's one of the best storytellers in comics. As far as like here in the States, I mean, I buy everything, so it's not like I'll buy anything that it looks interesting and good. Um, but let me see what's an yeah, there's friends of mine whose work I think is always great. Gene Lun Yang, Gene Yang's work is so good. You know, I mean, Raina's work is right up there. She's so her storytelling clarity, her narrative um, uh, clarity is that's the best way to put it. I think she's just has a way of drawing that feels very clear, and it's not exist. It doesn't exist in a lot of other books I see. So I can see why people gravitate towards Raina's books. Um, it's the good craft of it is really it's a really high watermark, you know, for that kind of work. Um, and Dave Pilkey, I think, is just like our modern day. You know, he's like a poet, comics poet guy. Like he's a lot like George Harriman. Honestly, his work is a lot like Crazy Cat, but in it's like it's made to to fit within our mainstream markets and framework. It's something that Crazy Cat was never able to accomplish because I think George Herman was just, he was so free spirited and on his in his own world, and I don't think he worried too much about that. So, but Dave's work, I think it has that vibe, and I love seeing it. I love seeing that it's popular. That's so cool. It's because it's like watching some like an esoteric art form become super popular, and yet like it's the adults that don't get it and the kids that do, and something about that is really beautiful. Something really like I'm going, this is like art, you guys, but you guys, the adults are like treating it like it's not any, and that not it's like some silly thing, and then the kids like just can't get enough. That's really cool. That makes Dave a huge hero in my mind. So there's a lot I love to see. I love Jeff Kinney's work as well. This Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's just the funniest thing since Seinfeld. I think his comics are just so hilarious. There's just a hilarious thing in every page. Um, so yeah, I mean, and then there's a whole bunch of young artists that are coming out and with new work that I think will eventually get their legs under them and create like a new generation of cartoonists. And one of those is somebody who actually worked with me on Amulet 8. It'd be Tim Probert, who did Lightfall, and that's a new book that's out, new series coming out. I don't know if it's Simon Schuster. I forgot who the publisher was, but it could be Harper. And yeah, he's got quite a bit of talent, and he's got the work ethic and drive that I think will carry him for a while. So, and then the book to be on the lookout for, if you guys want the lowdown, it's my wife's book, and I know it's my wife, so that, like everyone's gonna say, well, of course he's gonna say good things about it, but Amy. So it's Amy Kim Kibuishi. Amy really has made what I think is the best fantasy graphic novel I have ever read and seen. So I mean, and that's including my book. My book feels like it's. I mean, to be fair, I don't work in literary terms. I work much more in cinematic terms. So if you look at my books, they feel like movies, and if you like movies, you'll love my books. Now, if you like literary fiction, like things like you know Jane Austen or Diana Wynne Jones, uh, you read these books; those are very literary, and I haven't seen a fantasy graphic novel really strike that literary feel that makes it that has like a really like accessible feel to it. And Amy has struck the balance of accessibility with that literary feel in graphic novel fiction. And I don't know, I just haven't seen it before. And every time anybody's read the books, they say the same thing. They go, "Wow, I haven't seen anybody do that yet." And so they're everyone who's read her work is you know just been blown away. Because maybe people don't expect it. I mean, I clearly expected that, but Scholastic did too. They've been asking her to do a graphic novel for years, but she decided to spend all her time with the kids and focus on our family because I was already working so hard that if both of us did what I was doing, that it would have really harmed the kids in the early stages of their life. And now they're getting older and they don't need us as much. So she's able to start working again, and she's doing her series for Scholastic.
So she's doing the same thing that you are. She's writing and doing the art chores.
Yeah, she has assistants helping with flatting, like just the basic color stuff. But she's also doing the painting. Amy's actually painting it, so she's doing even more than I am on Amulet. But for her, she feels that her advantage here is that she's already written it because she's written the book um, first as a web comic, then as a novel. She spent like 5 or 6 years writing it as a novel or a series of novels. And then she came back to graphic novels. And so she had all of this material to work from. So she's kind of adapting what she had already done twice before. Um, and um, and so she can focus on the artwork. It's like what Dave Pilkey did with Dogman. He had already written everything prior to starting, so he could focus on, once it's done, he could focus on touring and promoting and speaking to people about the books without worrying about having to get the next book done.
Mm.
It was already in the hands of, I think, Jose Garibaldi, his colorist, and so it was just being colored, and he was just on the road, and he could focus on that. And I thought it was a really smart way to do it, because for me, I'm doing all these things at once. Like I'm in the middle of the tours, doing the books on the road. um, my friend Jerry Kraft, who created New Kid and Class Act, he was doing the same thing. We saw each other on the road, and we're both like just worn out. It was nice though to see another traveler like that, and we both have the same agent, and and I got to know him really really well during for like the last several years, and it's so awesome to see that people are recognizing his work in the ways that they are. But at the same time, I think both Jerry and I need to compartmentalize our production with the promotion part of it a little bit better, like the way Amy and Dave Pilkey have.
And there you answered another one of our questions unwittingly, and that was the fact whether you had planned the books in advance or whether you were adapting the story as you were drawing the art and so on. And it sounds like it's the latter.
So I'm like a jazz player, I do like to improvise because I like being in the moment. I think I can't get the feeling that I want to get on something unless I'm living it. Like I gotta be in like I've got to be in there, like mentally. So what I do though is I do plan like checkpoints. Like this is where I have to be at certain time. This is where we essentially need to be in this particular zone. Like it has to feel like this. And then I go in a little bit blind, but on purpose, and I just fall into it, and I try to find out what the characters would do and see if I can get excited by decisions they would make, or get afraid. Like if I'm afraid of something, that's probably a good reason to explore it. And so, and then I'm also taking into account whatever's happening in the world. I'm listening, carefully to all the different thoughts and opinions and things like that, and I'm trying to process them through the story and allowing it in, and seeing if it helps, you know motivate choices that are really interesting, that change the trajectory of the story in some sense. um, Listening to my readers is so helpful. In 3 instances now, there have been I have gotten like some kind of reader feedback from a really intelligent, like 8 or 9 year old, asking a very particular question that drove me to answer the question, and it became pretty much the the linchpin for 3 books. And it's happened for 7, 8, and 9. So all 3 of these last books, there's been one particular young reader somewhere that asked just the right question at just the right time. And now, like, I kind of just expect that to happen. So I just try to listen very carefully, and then eventually someone's going to ask just the right question, and then it could change the whole trajectory of the book. And that's what happened on book 7. I actually scrapped 30 pages that I had done. I started the book already. I did 30 pages of epic action and all this cool stuff, and everyone was going to enjoy it, but it wasn't a very focused 30 pages. And one girl at a library in Olympia, I believe, Washington, either Olympia or yeah, Olympia, I believe. She asked one particular question, and I realized that I had not answered a major question from book 5 that she was asking about, and I decided to scrap everything I had done to answer her question, and that became Amulet 7, Firelight. So and I think that's probably, like, narratively, that might be the strongest book, because I've gone through and read all the books together, and once I come to 7 and I read 7, I there's like it's airtight. The whole thing is so, when you see a movie, sometimes you're just like, it looks like there's nothing you could take out, nothing you would add. It just feels really airtight. When I read number 7, it feels like that. Like, it's so tightly wound, and I think a lot of it is because I was so driven by answering that question, um, that yeah, and all she did was ask what happened at the end of Amulet 5. That's it. And I was like, yeah, I didn't answer that, so I'm going to answer it. Here it is.
Wow. Well, I haven't gotten to Amulet 7. Like I said, it's been a while, and I'm now catching up.
You can look forward.
And sorry?
Now you can look forward to it then.
I can, yeah. Because yeah, I think we're in Danish publication, we're up to book 5. So I think by the time 9 comes out, I think we'll probably have then, maybe we'll have to wait till 2022, early 2022, but we'll see with book 9. But 7 should be, well, a few months away though. That's
Well,
okay.
So you can get the American versions.
I know, but as we talked about, I want to read them with my kids, and yeah, but I might end up having duplets, one in English, one in Danish as well. I don't mind. I have plenty of those. Now, in terms of the books, how long? Well, obviously, it's taking you a long time to do number 9 right now. But how long has it taken you on average to do a book, is one question from a reader.
Yeah, I mean, if you took the first 5 Okay, this is the 5 books that I did before I got bacterial meningitis and nearly died.
What?
So that's another story. Um, so the first 5 books, I was working insane hours. I mean, 7 days a week from like 9 to 10 a.m. to 4 a.m., and I was enjoying it. So it wasn't like it was torture. This isn't like, the kind of work where you hated it. This is work I enjoyed. I loved it. I was almost addicted to it. You can almost say that. And I was doing a book in about an 8 to 9 month period. And that's fully painted. That's 200 to 224 pages, fully painted graphic novel that's been written and rewritten about 8 to 10 times. It was insane. And I did that for 5 years. I got struck with bacterial meningitis and was in a coma. And I'm very lucky to be alive. I mean, it was a 1% chance, less than 1% chance I would survive. That's where I was because it was like early onset hydrocephalus. It's pretty much it was a game over situation. I got to a particular hospital that knew what it was because they had just lost somebody the week before from the same thing, and decided instead of testing and checking and seeing what to do, they just decided to go and put me in a coma and start treatment immediately, spinal tap, and just fill me with antibiotics and just hope that I survive somehow. And apparently all my full court basketball playing that I did during that time apparently saved my life because I lost about 60 pounds, of which I don't have much to lose. But I mean, I was 60 pounds less than I am right now. And
Holy.
yeah, and yeah, I woke up and I couldn't remember how to draw. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't walk. And I had to regain all those skills. And during that time, I did the Harry Potter covers, the 15th anniversary edition paintings that I did for the Scholastic editions of Harry Potter. Um, and that came at a perfect time. When I was asked to do that, it was perfect timing because I just couldn't write. I couldn't remember how to write well. I couldn't write because I couldn't remember anything. And I still have major short-term memory problems I have to work around, so I have to take copious notes in order to write. So basically, it's like I had like one of the wheels shot out from out of out of the car, you know, but the car's still running on 3 wheels, and it's still going. And I was able to make books 6, 7, and 8 with like half my brain skills. But it just required a lot more discipline now. Now I have to be a disciplined guy. Now I can't lean on um like I can't lean on my like reserve talent, or whatever that was there that was able to like carry me for 5 books. I had to really, do things in a very easy to understand manner, which has this added benefit of being able to teach it now. I couldn't before. It was before I could just lean on like almost natural skill. And I just did this stuff, and people just thought, how does Kazi do all this stuff? And it was like I was just spinning a million plates at once to try to get these things done. And it just worked. So people just kept saying, okay, where's the next one? Here's the next one. And I did that for years and years and years. And then this thing happens where I'm stricken with this thing, and now I'm not. I feel like I age like 30 years in my brain, and I have to work with that. So I have to like take fish oil pills and get proper exercise, get good sleep, like as much sleep as I can, drink lots of water, and I got to treat myself like an old man, so that I can continue doing these books. Now it's not. I don't want to make an excuse, so I don't bring it up. It's not something that people don't often hear about from me, but I do recognize that I have a few limitations that I have to work around, and that's why it takes a little bit longer. So there's that, But at the same time, I'm also trying to do the books better than ever, and I do think they are getting better. I think towards the end, they're better and better than ever before, and that also takes time. I want to do graphic novels, not just particularly to feed the market, but graphic novels that set a standard on a number of fronts. Not only the quality of it, but also the fact that I wanted to make sure that my colorist, Jason, was taken care of. That's something you don't see in comics. You don't see comics creators taking care of their collaborators. They don't often do that. Or in some cases they do, but it's very rare when you see colorists do well for comics, let
Mm.
alone the creators. But I wanted to make sure that part of the success of Amulet would hinge on Jason succeeding, and that's how in my mind, that's part of my goals. And success doesn't mean making a ton of money necessarily. It also means that he can raise his kids, that he can have a good life, and that he could even consider it as something to do for the rest of his life. Just like myself, like I have to be able to consider, would I do this for the rest of my life? And if I was doing it the way I did books 1 and 5, I can't. By the time I'm my age now, about 50, or like I'm in my, I'm gonna be entering my mid 40s. Like if I was, by the time I was in my 50s, there's no way I could do what I was doing. It would kill me.
We can't have that. Oh, holy.
It
Uh,
killed Tezuka. So I think people have to know, like, this is grueling work that you're asking yourself to do. I'm up till 3 in the morning, like right now. I mean, but I'm doing it in a very measured manner, so that I try to sleep in on those nights when I do that. It's like the next day I'll just wake up at 11. So it's not like I'm not getting my sleep. It's just that sometimes I work best at 3 in the morning, when everyone else is asleep and everyone leaves me alone. I'm not doing any interviews. I'm not and my kids are fast asleep and everything's quiet, and I can just focus on the writing and the work. And I've just noticed that I just do my best work at that time.
that seems to be the case with a lot of people that I know, and includes myself even.
Mhm.
Um, Now, all of these books. Now, of course, you're saying that you've spent, should we call it, more qualitative time on the latter half of the series. But if you were to pick one book out of the series as one of your favorites, would you be able to do that, or would you rather just say no, 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 I'm not gonna?
um I don't know. I don't really. It's hard to pick favorites, because my what I'm interested in thinking about is different at different times. So if you were to ask, like, like which one had like the most effective production, I'd say, oh, Amulet 4, probably. Amulet 4, we had like a big team, and it was like we put a lot of effort into the artwork, and I think that it shines. Um, and then I think, as far as tight storytelling, number 7, I think, is the best told story. Um, Number 8 is definitely the most ambitious that we've done until this one. Number 9 will blow that one out of the water. uh, it's like, yeah, it's got to be the most epic graphic novel. It has to be. I mean, at this point, I gotta deliver. It's got to be the most epic graphic novel people have read. So that's what I'm working with, and my expectations. It's not just delivering like a good enough story. It can't be just good enough. It has to leave you with this feeling like, whoa, man, that's a lot to think about, or that was a lot to process, and that was and how is it possible it was that short? Figure out. It's like gonna be a magic trick. So I'd say, like, at the end, hopefully number 9 is my favorite. That it should be that way. Um, and yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. I think each one has its own merits. Number 5 has, I think, my favorite moment in the book, and that's like when Trellis is in his meeting with his Uncle Virgil. um, and is it? Did I get that right? I might have my characters' names wrong,
I
but
don't know, but I'm thinking, like, should I shout out no spoilers, because it may be out in English, but it's not out in Danish yet.
actually not spoiling anything. So
All right. Um, Now, I just want to return to one thing that you said earlier, which will kind of wrap up the questions from the readers. And you mentioned Diane Wynne Jones, and one of our questions was whether the walking house in Amulet was inspired by her work, or was it inspired by Miyazaki, or was it inspired by something else entirely? And if you know other stories with walking houses, I know I can think of one at least, but I'm not going to say what it is until you've
well,
tried to answer.
I think I did Amulet 1 before House Moving Castle. I'm not sure if that's correct,
I
but
think it is.
yeah. So I didn't. I unfortunately I couldn't be inspired by the walking house. By the castle. I don't think I. But it was just no, I wasn't inspired by any of those things actually. In this case, I wasn't. So Amy is the fan of Diana Wynne Jones. I didn't know about her work until Amy introduced it to me, and that was like several. I guess probably like I was already working on Amulet. So the Walking House, no, it was. I just I like. Okay, so here's what I like. I like steampunk things.
Mm.
I like the mixing of cultural references. I like Japanese and American references like intermixing. Um, I once worked with one of my artistic heroes. His name is Ron Cobb, and he is an illustrator, designer. He was like an editorial cartoonist from America that worked in Australia, and he also designed a lot of movie vehicles that people probably know, like the Nostromo from Alien, the Alien movies, and he did all the marine stuff, like their weapons, the suits, the carrier vehicles, the carrier vehicle, the planes and stuff. He did a lot of that stuff, and I worked on a project with him prior to being a comic artist, and he's just one of my biggest heroes. And one of my favorite things that he worked on was a movie called Robot Jacks. And it's not like the best movie in the world. I like the movie quite a bit, but I remember even as a kid, I thought, "Whoa, those robots are so well designed. Robots look amazing. It looks way better than this movie, maybe deserves." Because this is like a B movie. It's like a cheap movie that you see that just kind of toss off movie. But at the time, like I was like, man, I love the designs of like the Gunstar and the Last Starfighter, Centauri's car in the Last Starfighter. I love the designs of that. I love the designs of everything in Aliens, And then I saw the Robot Jacks. And I was like, I love those designs too. But it's like in this cheap movie. It's weird. And then when I met him, I realized he designed all of those things. I was like, I've just been following Ron Cobb. And then he told me one of the things he loved about doing Robot Jocks was that he wanted to give it he wanted to create American Western Gundams. He
Oh,
was
cool.
the John Wayne Gundam. That's what he told me. He's like, this was my opportunity to do like the American style old West gunslinger Gundam. And I was like, that's so rad. That is exactly why I loved it. I loved how uniquely, like, it was such a play off of the design. Like, I love Gundams. I love the artist who designed Gundam and Macross and all that stuff. Like people loved as kids. He actually went to college with my mom, I believe. And so yeah. So that um, um, so those designs, like I love the play of like going from Japan to America and to West and East. I love that West and East combination, and that's what Miyazaki does so well. He takes old European stories and he reinterprets them and weaves them into this new Japanese thing that is loved by Americans now, and
Mm.
Americans taking it on as like almost an American aesthetic, which is so interesting. And I love that interplay of things. um and so with the Walking House, I felt like I was doing something similar to what Ron Cobb was doing, and I wanted to do like this like ratty old like Castle Gundam. And that's where what I was thinking more than, like those like like the Baba Yaga myths and everything like that of the walking house and stuff. I wasn't thinking about those stories. But it's cool to see when I saw the walking house in Howl's Moving Castle. I was just like, that's super cool. I love it. And I think Miyazaki has very much the same, he's got the same thing going. So I think there's going to be a visual crossover.
Yeah, Baba Yaga was definitely what I was thinking about in terms of walking houses.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think we're all just kind of drinking from the same wells, eating kind of the same foods, but they're changing. My stuff. I hope that people consider it very uniquely American, because I think my comics are very American, in the way that they're presented, not so Japanese or not so old Eastern European or Western European. Um, I take from all of those things, and I'm just trying to make something new.
Yeah, I've got a sneeze coming up. It's probably gonna interrupt everything. Um, but it's been really wonderful hearing you describe all the processes and all the inspiration that's gone into your work. And I have to say on my part that what I've read of Amulet, I've absolutely loved. Um, we have a good mutual friend, JP Ahonen, who was a guest at Art Bubble several years ago, and he's spoken so highly of you. So I'm really, really happy to be able to talk to you and to be able to introduce Amulet to Danish readers as more than just a book on the stand, and actually for them to be able to have some questions answered and so on. So thank you very, very much for that.
You're welcome. And if you see JP, let him know I said hello, of course. And I love JP. He's one of my favorite art. I think he's one of the greatest comic artists on the planet. So I hope that the world sees more of his work. I really hope that people recognize what his friends see in his work. I think it'll eventually catch up, because he's so good.
Oh, he's amazing. And, I'm guessing you've seen the music videos for the Bubs.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen everything he's been doing. It's so hilarious that this became the thing that kind of defines his career.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But JP is way more than Beelzebubs too. I
Oh,
mean, I
of
think
course.
just like the breadth and scope of his work is pretty immense, and it'll get recognized eventually. I mean, maybe it's getting recognized now, but I think on a bigger scale, people should, in a more mainstream way. His work is so good. He's like Peter Jackson, the filmmaker. Peter happen. People don't know it. Like I saw Dead Alive years ago in a video store. I was like, "Who is this director? This guy's got it. He's got the thing." It was like seeing Sam Raimi show up again, and I just thought, like, yeah, eventually this person's going to do some big movie, probably. This is where you're going to get the talent. It's going to be in the schlocky horror section. People don't pay attention.
Thank you so much for talking with us, Kazu. It's been a real pleasure. I've learned a lot, and I hope that you have a lot of new Amulet fans in Denmark once this interview comes out. I know we still have some books to go. You've yet to finish book number 9, but I look forward to reading every single one of them, and
Yeah,
thanks for coming on.
yeah. Thank you for having me on, and someday I'd love to come visit you guys and see what life is like over there. I think my grandfather traveled a lot in those areas of Europe, and he often told me that those are like his favorite places on earth. So I'm gonna have to eventually make my way out there and see some friends, say hello. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Hello, this is Dave McKean, and you are watching Art Bubble TV.